I'm supposed to be doing something a bit special for date night.
Oh, date night? Get you.
Yeah, I know. She's making me think we should do something special. That we need to make time for each other.
Well, it's never been your strong point, has it? Being romantic.
Yeah, well, Sally never expected Matt to make a special effort.
Yeah, and look how that ended. It should be glad Abby cares enough to worry about this sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to do I? Date night? It's just a load of American nonsense.
Hello and welcome to episode 130 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street catch-up podcast that has officially lost count of the number of times Tim's dad has walked into his own house to be confronted by people who didn't expect to be there, and surely it's just a matter of time before he returns from the cop to find Grant, the security guard's mum, going through his utility bills. I'm Gavin.
And I'm thankful for all of our lovely listeners.
Yes, thank you, listeners.
Yes.
We'll be back next week. That's, I think, the 9th time that I've done that joke. How are you? How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. How was your Thanksgiving?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It was the same Thanksgiving.
As usual.
Yeah, you and I had the same Thanksgiving, because I said, how was your Thanksgiving? And you said it was good, and you asked how mine was. Spoiler alert, we already knew how our Thanksgiving was, because we spent it together.
It was a couple of days ago as well.
Yeah.
So we do exist outside of this podcast bubble.
Yeah,
Things happen.
We do, yeah.
Like, time doesn't stop.
It's good. We went for just a turkey breast this year as opposed to a whole bird, and I don't think we'll do that again. No.
Although the fridge is happier.
Yeah, and the oven was happier as well. And it took less time to cook, but it just wasn't the same. Was it?
I don't know. It feels kind of wasteful how much food that we make that we don't eat.
No, we eat all the turkey.
It through the week. The turkey's gone?
No, but we do typically eat all the turkey.
Because I had one slice of that. That's it. That's
Since
all
Thanksgiving. Yeah. You had more than one slice on Thanksgiving.
No. You cut me a slice. That was all I had.
You didn't get more?
No.
You didn't get seconds?
No.
What? It was weird watching the parade, which was basically
I
just...
never enjoy that.
You know, the camera right on in front of the Macy's store and them showing the floats. You know, there was no like walking downtown or anything. It was just there, and some of it had been recorded previously. So the weather changes significantly throughout the parade while you're watching it. There are times when it's raining, there's times when it's snowing, and there's times when it's sunny.
It's like the dog show. It started off with dogs and finished with cats.
The dog show was good. We love the dog show.
Again.
Well, you don't, but Stelly was quite upset when she thought that they weren't going to have it. Because I was like, there's no way they're having the dog show. But they had the dog show. Just with no audience. Significantly fewer dogs. Typically there are 2,000 dogs at the dog show. There were only 600.
That's a lot of poop.
There were only 600 dogs at the dog show this year.
Still a lot of poop.
The Scottish Highland Hound won Best in Show this year. So, bully for Scotland.
Yay.
Yay, a Scottish dog won. Not the Scottish Terrier, though. Not the Highland Terrier. It was the Hound.
Oh.
So, you know, it looked different. And, you know, seeing all those people with masks and stuff, I kept crying.
Yeah, you're in a bit of a weepy mood on Thanksgiving.
I was really emotional. Like, I guess for the most part, the media I consume tends to veer away from being mask heavy, except for Corey. You know, like I watch old movies or things that were made before the pandemic for the most part.
Oh.
And also, the media I typically consume doesn't have commercials that are constantly reminding you that we're in a pandemic. So those typically made me quite weepy. And I was a bit weepy because our oldest couldn't be with us on Thanksgiving because he does an essential job where he comes in contact with lots of people who refuse to wear masks. So
Gas station, essential jobs.
Yeah, you need gas to get places.
Oh, yes. I never thought of it as essential.
Yeah.
So you can kind of pump it yourself.
Right. But somebody has to be there to take your money. And, and also a lot of people buy their groceries there.
Yeah, I don't know why. They're so expensive and kind of low quality.
Well, if you don't have a car to drive across town to Family Fair and then drag your groceries back from Family Fair, then you just use what's local, And there are people in town who don't have cars. So that was different. And I brought some food over for him. Sally and I did. We had our nice, wee, lovely Thanksgiving Day walk, and that's always good. And that wasn't much different. We saw some people we know having their Thanksgiving in a garage.
Yes, my friend Steve. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. And he told you to bugger off.
I said, enjoy your turkey garage.
Your garage turkey. So that was a little different, but, And then we played Scrabble, a new one.
Yeah, of course.
Which we all knew was going to happen anyway. But it was still fun. Yeah?
The fun that we had, though, at the start of it was because this isn't our box of Scrabble, because like most things in this house, they come from dead people's homes, auctions, or something else. So this was a well-used, or at least used once, Scrabble board.
Yeah, it was kind of a vintage Scrabble board.
And when we opened it up, there was a sheet of paper from perhaps the only time that Scrabble was played for that board between Grandma, Becky, Mom,
and
John, who were all really shit at Scrabble. Grandma's first move got 2 points. Well done, Grandma. And I think the winning score was 88.
Yeah. Whereas you were well over 200.
227. Not that often.
Not that you memorized it.
I have the sheet of paper in front of me.
Oh,
Which
so
helps.
you were Grandma.
I played Grandma because I was G.
You were Grandma. Benny was Becky.
He was not happy about that, but he learned to fill the role.
Powered through. Stella was John.
Yep.
And I was Mom. Boringly.
But the amusing part was that Stella also scored 88 points in the guise of John, which is what John got in that game that was played. I'm going to say like decades ago, probably. That was an old Scrabble board.
Yeah, but I don't know, because all of the score sheets that came with that Scrabble board had been used and were no longer there. So I think it had been used more than just that one time, and I think that one time may have been fairly recently, maybe in the last 10 years.
Well, nobody got any better at Scrabble.
No. Not that we have any
Grandma.
Not that we have any evidence of. We don't have those even older score sheets. But I mean, this was a board that came with a little envelope where you could mail away if you were missing tiles.
Right.
So that shows how old it is.
That was pretty old. It wasn't the greatest board. The tiles weren't fantastic. The racks were quite good, but the tiles were
The racks are always good in this house.
set up. The tile didn't have a dimple in the back side of it, so you couldn't tell which side was the letter side and which side wasn't, which is a little awkward. I don't like that. But still.
The letter side is the side that has a letter on it.
Yeah, but when you're taking them out of the bag and then you're opening up your hand to look at them, you don't want to be showing them off to anybody.
See, that was the first time I've ever played with a bag. Typically we have all of the tiles face down and you pick them up off the table face down.
Yeah, it's not regulation. You gotta watch Scrabble on YouTube sometimes. That opens your eyes. The World Championship a couple of years ago was very exciting. Genuinely exciting.
I love you.
It's 45 minutes long and it is exciting right to the very end. It's just wonderful. The commentators make it. I may post that on our Twitter feed because more people need to watch it. It's really, really good.
Oh dear.
Shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that thankful Corey news.
Corey is the new Simpsons?
What?
Long before we were all wearing masks, the writers on the cobbles pitched an idea for a pandemic storyline.
Did they really?
Yeah, with the disease spread by Tyrone's pigeons. It was scrapped as being too unrealistic for
Well,
the show.
Tyrone's pigeons, I think, is the unbelievable part of it.
Well, it was spread on the street by Tyrone's pigeons. It must have started somewhere else for it to be a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
You're
Well,
not gonna start
pandemic's
a
got to start
pandemic.
somewhere.
Yeah,
Like a
typically
wet
not
market in Wuhan.
Manchester.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, so predicting
Keep going.
the end times, just like The Simpsons. Battersby's battle on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, this was unfortunate.
Yeah.
I just finished reading this.
Yeah. Well, fans and co-stars alike have been rightly praising Jane Danson's performance in the Oliver storyline. Vicky Entwistle, who played Leanne and Toyah's mum on the show, threw cold water over everything by tweeting, "Imagine if she had better writers behind her. That really would have been something." To which Jane replied, "Shame on you for writing that. Very disappointed how mean that comment was." And while I myself have had some quibbles with the writing, I agree with Jane here. Time and place, Vicky. Time and place.
It just came across as being
Mean.
mean-spirited, yeah.
And, you know, it was hilarious because Ben Price fan page in September had posted these things like, what Coronation star do you want, what character do you want to come back? And she had posted at one point that she wanted Janice to come back because, she thought that Leanne and Toyah could use her support during this storyline. And Ben Price fan page retweeted that this morning saying, well, that aged well.
Yeah, it's not going to happen now.
No.
You kind of burn your bridges with silly comments like that.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, time and place. Not right after Georgia had tweeted to Jane, my beautiful friend,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in awe of your talent. Yeah, but imagine if she had better writing. No, not the time. Not the time. Not the time.
I wonder if a slight amount of maybe post-show aperitifs had been had. Most people have a kind of filter that stops those sort of...
Yeah.
Although, having said that, we do this for an hour and a half every week.
Yeah, but we're just a podcast.
It doesn't really matter. what you think.
Interestingly, between Jane and Vicky, 10 years.
Yeah, I think I
Vicky's
remember
52
that from...
and Jane is 42.
I think I remember that from when Janice was on the show.
A little young to be playing Leanne's mum.
Well,
And
it's
I mean,
a kind
even
of
when I
Gail
was
and Audrey
looking
thing,
at
isn't it?
At the pictures, I was like, geez, she didn't really look old enough to be Leanne's mom. And then when I looked it up, oh yeah, she had her when she was 10.
Right. Gail and Audrey are around about that difference as well.
Yeah. I think there comes a point.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, we digress.
Moving on.
Moving on. Finally.
Always moving on.
Finally. In more Corey stars behaving badly,
Oh dear.
Colson Smith apparently doesn't know how to recycle properly, leading to his neighborhood's recycling bins being locked down and his neighbors calling him an inconsiderate arse on Facebook.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah.
He made a kind of joke about it on
The Sofa Cinema Club, yeah. Apparently.
Wow, they really take recycling seriously. I forgot that was a thing in the UK.
But I mean, even when, it's like, you threw away your ice packs? Why would you throw away perfectly good ice packs that you could reuse? Like, when you're exercising and your back is sore, you could just go and grab one of those ice packs out of your freezer and slap it on your back or on your leg or on your shoulder. I know he works out a lot. So keep some of those ice packs. Don't just chuck them in the garbage in your cardboard box that they came into the garbage where cardboard itself doesn't belong. I don't know. As
He's 22. I think that's all the explanation that you need. He's 22.
How old are pretty much all of the eco warriors who are fighting against global warming these days. How old is Greta?
You're really going to compare Colson Smith to Greta Thunberg. That is what you're doing right now.
Yes.
And you're fine with that.
My point is that age is not an excuse for...
Age is absolutely an excuse. 22, I couldn't be bothered to fucking recycle anything either.
Yeah, but...
I still can't really be bothered to recycle stuff.
You didn't have a global, meltdown breathing down your neck when you were 22.
I don't think that would have changed my opinion.
Although I
that
guess
much.
that hole in the ozone layer was there over New Zealand when we were 22. Well, when I was 22, you were 25.
It didn't fix itself in 3 years.
No.
It didn't become a problem over 3 years.
No. Anyway, that's Corey News.
Everything that you'd learn about Coulson from the Sofa Cinema Club is that he's a daft boy. And and who wasn't a daft boy when they were 22? I was
Seems
a
like
daft
his
boy.
heart is in the right place, though,
Yeah.
sometimes.
I think my heart was in the right place when I was 22. I was still an arsehole. Really enough, and I think of some of the things I did when I was 22.
I had Nick when I was 22, so I was a responsible young adult.
Oh, really?
I had to be. I was a mum.
At 22. Responsible.
I mean, I wasn't responsible in getting pregnant, but
There you go.
afterwards. That makes you grow up and become responsible right quick. Mostly.
Is that Corey News?
And that's Corey News.
Let's do our mailbag then, shall we?
Ooh.
Chloe from Nova Scotia Ren, happy Thanksgiving to everyone at Talk of the Street Towers. I
Oh,
very
thank
much
you.
enjoyed the bumper episode of the podcast last week, which kept me company during 3 complete loads of laundry.
Oh, nice.
Is that a good thing?
Yes.
I think we're more interesting than laundry. Is that what that means? We're more interesting than, or as interesting
It's
as
something to
3
keep
loads of laundry.
yourself occupied while you do 3 loads of laundry. That's good.
We did go on for a bit last week.
It's fine.
Yeah, because that's fine, because you just walk out of here
Hey,
and that's
at least she's not, saying I love your podcast. I fall asleep to it every night.
I've fallen asleep during our podcast a couple of times.
You fall asleep to our podcast a lot. There are times that I come to bed and I hear my voice coming from the other side
I
of the
don't
bed.
do that deliberately. I hit
And it's
listen
eerie.
now. I hit listen now, and sometimes it just trolls through. I've woken up during some of the poetry podcasts before and been fucking terrified that, because some people like to play train sounds as they're reading poetry to us. And at 3 o'clock in the morning in the pitch dark, when you hear a kind of ghostly locomotive and some guy reading poetry, it kind of gives you a bit of a jolt.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I woke up in the middle of the night last night and it was my Australian murder podcast playing.
Yes, that's not a good one to wake up to either. Mine is Stranger Danger. I used to listen to Red Handed, but I can't listen to them anymore.
Why not?
This is going to sound so hypocritical.
Uh-huh.
They're too sweary. But it feels forced.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of my problem with My Favorite Murder.
Forced swearing.
It seems like it's forced swearing and forced levity while talking about people being brutally murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway,
back to the mailbag. So Kev got back in touch. I didn't realise I rambled on for so long last week. I will try to be more concise when I say I wasn't crying at Corey this week. You were. Oh, really?
We all were.
And thank you to everyone who dropped us a line to wish us a happy Thanksgiving. I hope everyone who chose to celebrate had a peaceful and revitalising time surrounded by just the perfectly bearable number of loved ones.
Yes.
And now this.
Welcome.
And welcome to Last Year Tonight this morning with me, John Oliver. Just enough time to quickly talk about Reminiscent of Wagner. Any ideas?
Reminiscent of who now?
Wagner.
No idea.
This was Roy going to see the Stone Roses and talking about the Stone Roses with his brother. He said
yeah.
the percussion in particular was very reminiscent of Wagner.
Ah.
I was Gavin and you were stuffed like a turkey.
Ooh.
This was the episode where I started to insist that Paul's therapist looked like the hippie teacher from Beavis and Butthead. Super Nanny Jade's secret is revealed with the help of a bunch of flowers, a quote from Paradise Lost, and a graveyard with generous opening hours. That was quite a good moment. Kel finds himself in front of the old Bill, who, despite having the Polaroids from Bernie, are happy to release him on a burglary charge.
Yikes.
Roy makes Richard's home help cry and then quit. That was quite funny. After last week's reveal, Michael wants to play the responsible father, and Grace isn't entirely against the idea, but warns him to keep his bloody mother out of her business. Yeah, good luck with that.
Me.
The Knicker people now insist on being known as the 50%ers, which isn't nearly as catchy. Ray Weinstein helps himself to an early morning bistro cappuccino and then reveals he's dropping his lawsuit instead of his trousers for a change. An increasingly scorned Michelle does well to keep her dinner down every time Robert is within 2 feet of her, which happens a lot. Emma has an exciting Christmas offer that may be outshined by Steve's fancy needlework. Yeah, she was supposed to go to Australia and then didn't. Brian thinks he looks like Robert from a distance.
From a distance.
Nina isn't going to a fancy dress party. Mary is interested in getting her hands on Adam's fuse box, but not like that.
Yeah.
No, actually,
Absolutely like that.
Moment of the week is Evelyn viciously turning against Jade. This was when Evelyn really became family with Fizz and Tyrone. And boring moment of the week was Dr. Gadassi's biscuits. I think Moira's biscuits were involved in that as well, weren't they?
Wasn't it Moira stealing Dr. Gadass's biscuits?
Maybe.
I thought there was a post something. Oh. Yeah. Gav is also, while we're doing the podcast, watching the Alya match. So if you hear him being shouty for no apparent reason, that would be why.
Yeah, they're playing Hearts in the League Cup today.
Exciting.
And what a world we live in.
Or we can watch it while recording a podcast.
I can sit
in
here
America.
in Eaton Rapids, Michigan, and watch my beloved Alya Athletic probably get beat quite heavily off Heart of Midlothian. It only cost $10.
Nice.
Only.
Yeah.
Oh well, it's Thanksgiving. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Sure.
Our first storyline today is the troubles with couples. I had to kind of smoosh again. Because Adam and Sarah and Carl and Peter.
Yeah, it's all the same thing.
And Johnny and Jenny all kind of overlap with each other.
Johnny and Jenny.
Johnny and Jenny.
Anyway.
You stay warm, boring moment of the week. On Monday, Peter's got his mitts on Tim's cab and apparently hasn't given up on finding out who Carla bonked last week, as he's on his phone to a mate who works in security for that chain of hotels, and Peter's looking to find a scumbag who stole his wallet in one of them.
Isn't it convenient that Peter has a mate who used to work security?
A mate that we've never heard of before.
In that line of hotels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's kind of convenient. But then they kind of piss all over the convenience because it
turns out he doesn't know anything. He doesn't work there anymore.
Right. It draws a blank. It's a bit awkward between him and Carla, who he meets on the street, and then Adam appears out of Roy's Rolls. And Peter suggests lunch at the bistro, and Carla, with the image of a sweaty Adam in her head, looks guilty as fuck because she agrees.
Ew.
Peter seems to notice that Adam is a bit standoffish. So Carla goes round to the Rovers to see Johnny, who looks petrified to see her. Johnny spends quite a lot this week looking petrified. She tells him to spill the beans, something's up. He tells her it's nothing for her to worry about, it's something for Jenny to worry about, but he hasn't found the opportunity to talk to her. And at that, who walks in?
But Jenny.
So Carla mouthes her excuses and leaves. Jenny wants to go away for a break because but Johnny is still worried about the Scott stuff, even though it's been weeks and the cops still haven't shown up.
That really is her solution to everything, is going away.
How many times has she suggested that since France?
How many times have they actually done it?
Since France?
Well, no, like in their whole relationship. They're constantly going away for a wee bit because stuff.
Mm-hmm. She had something else to the mix this week. Parrots.
Oh, yes. You know what that reminded me of when she was talking about it?
The sweary parrots.
Well, yeah, there's that, which for some reason they were back in the news this week.
I know.
I think some people just took a long time getting to that story, and we're posting it as if it was brand new. And can you believe this? And it's like, yeah, I remember that from a month ago.
Mm-hmm. These small, kind of not really important stories, they kind of rise and fall depending on how busy the news cycle is.
But anyway, what that really reminded me of was that restaurant we went to in the Cayman Islands with all the parrots.
Yeah, they were quite noisy, weren't they?
Yeah, they didn't talk though.
No.
No.
They're still quite noisy. The story kind of falls away a little bit with them not talking, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the one like at the hostess stand chatted a wee bit, but that was a nice restaurant though. Good food. Out in the, kind of in the middle of nowhere, which is kind of hard to do on the Cayman Islands.
Yeah, I kind of get caught up in which one was which. Was that the seafood one? They were all kinds of seafood, weren't they?
It was the Cayman Islands. They all had seafood.
Was that your birthday one or not your birthday one?
No, the birthday one was the one where we were out by the harbor in the open air, the seafood restaurant.
Right.
By the country club.
Yeah.
We sound totally like people we aren't when we talk about
Shush you. I had some investments I had to check up on personally, which neatly coincided with your 40th birthday party.
Yes.
So yeah, we decided to kill two birds with one stone and hop in the Lear.
But not a parrot.
Jet over to
the Caymans
the Caymans. See how Margaret was doing, and go down to Georgetown and check out, see how the good folks at the bank were looking after our investments.
Yes.
And then rented a pink Mazda that had no brakes, and at that point the fantasy kind of fell. Remember that first rental that we had to return?
And smelled.
I had to return it because the brakes didn't work.
Yeah. And the lady there asked us if we were going to vote for Trump. Remember that?
Oh yes, so she did.
And she couldn't remember who Trump was running against. And as you and I walked out, I was like, well, that's a bad sign.
Right. I always kind of felt sorry for the people who have Ferraris and Lamborghinis in the Cayman Islands and the Aston Martins.
Right, because...
You can do 40 miles an hour.
What's the point?
Outside of town.
Yeah.
And you really couldn't open up much more than that because there's no real stretches of road.
Yeah.
It's all windy coastal roads.
Right. And I mean, you get to the bit where you're kind of out of town and stuff. And there are fewer people. But
we've been talking about the Caymans for about 15 minutes, so...
Yeah, let's get back to Johnny and Jenny.
Because what's happening there?
I don't know. What is happening there, Gav? Tell us.
Oh, I fucking lost my place. All I can see is parrots and seafood restaurants and lying about why we were in the Caymans. She wants to go away because Jenny...
That's where we were.
Yeah. But seeing Peter in that state has made him blame himself more for what happened to Grant the security guard. What difference does it make now, asked Jenny, who's pissed that they're even talking about it. Just burrow it away, scrunch it in a little ball.
And push it deep down inside your soul.
Right.
And let's never talk about this again.
He doesn't know how to do that and goes off for a walk.
Mm-hmm. He's been walking a lot.
Yeah. Peter and Carla meet in the bistro. He's had a meeting, but his cravings are their usual background level, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. Is that a good thing? Let's call it a good thing.
Okay.
Carla thinks that this is all weird. She's not sure they can move on from what happened last week. He thinks they're being honest with each other, but she's not sure that they're being honest to themselves. Can he really forgive her? He thinks they've been through worse. Then Sarah is trying to coax Shona into wearing something more appropriate for the school run.
Oh, yeah. This wasn't too bad as far as Shona behaving badly is concerned.
You think?
Yeah.
I kind of hated it.
Well, you hate all the Shona stuff now.
I do.
You do. But, I mean, at least she wasn't making cakes with cheese balls.
True. She was slightly inappropriate. Well, what she was wearing was inappropriate for a kickoff.
Right, yeah. But, I mean, was she really going to be getting out of the car? Weren't they just going to be pulling up to the school? The kids jump in the car and then they leave? I mean, how many people were really going to see her dressed inappropriately? And I have seen mums at school pickup much more inappropriately dressed than that. Thank you very much. At least all her bits were covered.
Adam comes. There's people who don't have all their bits covered. Only to go in the school run once or twice. Adam comes along and tries to do some smooth talking. He wants to try again. He doesn't want their marriage to end without a fight. He meant what he said in his voicemail. He's never loved anyone like he loved her. She agrees to try to hang out together as friends and then see how it goes. Then Shona locks herself in the house with and she's got a hold of the car keys. Hilarious.
Hilarity ensues.
After her lunch with Peter, Carla gets back to the Rovers. And
Adam goes to pick up the kids.
I haven't got to that bit yet. And when she asks how things went with Johnny, Jenny breaks down. Right, you spill the beans this time, Carla says. So, back at the number 8, Shona refuses to come out, so Adam, he tries to talk her out by saying,
how you doing?
Come out. And she's like, bolt.
Yeah.
So he says that he'll go and pick up the kids for Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's gone, Shona draws a heart in the window saying that there's hope for Sarah and Adam yet.
Yeah.
Now Carla knows almost everything and doesn't think Johnny was involved in a violent act. Thinks that they should move on because she hasn't told them everything.
Right.
Jenny explains about Grant, the security guard, drinking himself to death. Yeah, okay. So, later back at number 8, the kids are at home and silently imprisoned upstairs. Shona is excited to point out that Sarah has something to ask Adam, and she's like a kid when she asks him out for a drink. They arrange to go to the bistro at 6:30 because Summer and Todd and Billy and Paul are in Speed Dial and Carla and Jenny and Johnny are in the Rovers. So
right.
that's the only place else that they can go.
Right.
Jenny's surprised that Carla isn't more upset by what Johnny did in the past, but Carla says hypocrite isn't a colour that she suits, and although Jenny's intrigued, Carla doesn't expand on it. In comes Johnny from his walk. He senses that Jenny has spilled to Carla. Johnny insists that a man died because of him, and he's never been punished for it. Jenny can't listen to this and she leaves. Carla isn't finished with Johnny yet, though. So, Sarah and Adam are in the bistro. They chat about David and Shona and how David is doing anything to make it work with his wife, and Sarah's willing to put the past in the past. His sleeping with someone else was just sex, and while it hurts, the news that is, she's not around every day to rub her nose in it, whoever it was.
Mm-hmm.
What was her name? Because she's referring back to...
Yeah, that lady.
Naomi. Was it Naomi?
Yeah, I think so.
Adam tries to come clean, but she talks over him and they end up ordering with plans for getting her whole after dinner.
Ha-ha.
He tries to own up, but he doesn't try
very hard.
Particularly hard. Because he could just say, look.
No, wait. No, stop. I need to tell you this.
I shagged Carla. Are we still okay? Back at the Rovers, Johnny calls himself a coward. Carla says that the boot fits her too. When Tony had Liam killed, she ran off to LA. Rather glamorous, I forgot about that. Mm-hmm. Jenny didn't know this, but his deal is different. She was innocent. She points out that she chose not to go to the police. Him doing time now isn't going to make any difference, and he didn't force Grant, the security guard, to drink himself to death.
That sounds quite similar to Sarah knowing what Gary did to Rick the Chin. Although Sarah's not going to LA anytime soon.
No.
During a pandemic. But still, I don't even know. Can we... I know the border to Canada is still closed.
Is that still closed? I was thinking about that this week. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's still closed.
What about Mexico?
I don't know. I think Mexico is still closed too. I think we're still stuck here.
Trapped.
Like rats.
In a cage.
In a sinking ship.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. So, Johnny says, what if it was that one thing that pushed Grant, the security guard, over the edge? Carla says, by that logic, what she's just done to Peter might make her a murderer. She starts to cry and confesses to cheating on him, just the once. But according to Johnny, once is enough. And then Johnny makes that face. You know that face?
Yes.
That
like he's on the toilet.
Right.
She doesn't confess who.
No, she does not. Markedly, she does not.
No.
On Wednesday, Carla has gotten Peter a special coffee, but he thinks there's no need. Every time she does something nice, he ends up being suspicious about it. Fair enough, you're a twat, she says, and then heads off to work.
I loved that. I loved that so much because she's not wrong.
And he seemed quite happy with that.
Yeah.
He preferred it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Johnny is trying to conceal his joint pain as Jenny blabbers on about old landladies of the Rovers. He says he's all out of sorts, but it's guilt rather than his MS. He gets up to go for a walk and then falls on the sofa.
Yeah.
No stuntmen were required for that.
No.
Turns out it's a pseudo-relapse, whatever that is.
Uh-huh.
Johnny wants to face facts about the robbery. He deserves to be punished. He says it's never going to go away. So Jenny goes to make some tea.
Which makes everything better.
Yep. Later, Johnny and Jenny are in the bar when Grant, the security guard's mum, turns up wanting a word with Johnny. How does she know that he owns the pub? I was thinking back to when they met the first time. Remember, off camera, he went to her house and one can only imagine her looking out her living room window to see Johnny standing staring at the house.
Right.
And then she followed him back to Coronation Street.
Right.
But they sat in the community garden, if I remember.
But I think she saw him like walking towards the Rovers or going to the Rovers. I don't know.
I don't think that happened.
I don't know. I don't care.
I don't care either, but there's so many parts of this storyline that confuse me, and this is one of them. How did Grant, the security guard's mum, know just to walk into the Rovers and Johnny would be there?
Right.
The police have a lead on the burglar's accomplice, she says.
Really? Because
What?
the police haven't come to talk to Johnny at all.
Right.
What are they waiting for? What are they waiting for?
Maybe it was raining.
Seriously. What are they waiting for?
Oh, there's a KFC in Alya now. That wasn't there when I was there. You see it?
I see the KFC, yes.
That must smell like KFC. The whole,
That must be really distracting.
right, because it makes you want a KFC.
Instead of kicking a ball around.
And then you have a KFC, and then you regret having a KFC.
And then you can't really kick a ball around
No.
with fried chicken in your gut.
But
I wonder if it tastes the same as the KFC here.
it does. The difference is you get fries, get proper fries at KFC in the UK. They're decent. I like McDonald's fries, even though they're so far away from potatoes it's not true. Burger King's I don't really like.
Yeah, I prefer McDonald's, I think.
KFC's are good. But then you don't get them here, you get potato wedges.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. So, Grant the security guard's mum explains to Jenny that Grant the security guard died 37 years ago after that lunatic ran him over. Johnny tells Grant the security guard's mum to explain what happened to Jenny so she can understand. So
Correct.
That's what happens. As far as she's concerned, it was a hit and run and the same as murder. And Johnny nods his head and agrees.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, murder, yes.
Do you know, have you seen, was it Take Me to Hell? What was that Sam Raimi movie? With the wee woman that got run over and she had a dodgy eye.
Uh-huh.
Take Me to Hell, Straight to Hell, something like that. A real good PG-13 horror movie.
Drag Me to Hell?
Drag Me to Hell,
Yeah.
that was it. Grant the security guard's mum reminds me of that old lady. And from what you just said there, it made me think of it.
Yes.
I think, no, I was going to say something uncharitable. Now,
What else is new?
someone has invited Grant, the security guard's mum, through at the back, where she continues on her script about not getting over losing Grant, the security
Johnny
guard.
did. Johnny said, let's go to the back and chat.
She hasn't had anything to live for the last 37 years.
Really?
Nothing. Not
Nothing.
a thing.
Nothing.
Johnny apologises and admits to being the driver. Grant, the security guard's mum, asks if he's the monster who ran while his mate gave Grant, the security guard, a good kicking. What?
Yeah.
Asks Johnny
Yeah.
on behalf of the audience.
And so do we.
This is news to Johnny, but Jenny oddly seems utterly convinced. This is why he's felt guilt all these weeks, because his involvement was worse than he admitted. Johnny promises Jenny and Grant, the security guard's mum, that he knew nothing about it. He only hit Grant, the security guard, a little bit with his car, and that was it. This is all so very, very confusing.
It was just a little bit. It was just a tap.
Just a tip.
But you're right. It's weird and frustrating because this is the first we've heard that Scott beat up the security guard. And this has been this problem with this whole thing, because the security guard's mom was like, he never got over his injuries and stuff. And it's like, didn't he just like clip him? Because he didn't like actually run over his body.
No.
We know he didn't really run him over. So all this time it's been like, that must have hurt, but would that drive you to drink? And it never made sense. And now it makes sense that Scott beat the crap out of him.
That doesn't drive you to drink either, does it?
Well, depending upon how bad the beating was.
So, from Johnny, did Scott contribute to this story? I can't remember. But from Johnny and Grant, the security guard's mum, what we knew was there was a robbery. Johnny's a getaway driver, so presumably he's sitting in the car. Scott, who's doing the robbery, because it's just the two of them, isn't it? Mm. He runs out of the warehouse or whatever, jumps in the car. Grant, the security guard, gives chase, runs towards the front of the car probably. Johnny drives off, clips Grant, the security guard, injures him.
Scott's not in the car.
But Scott's not in the car.
No. And we knew Scott wasn't in the car because that's how Scott got caught, but Johnny didn't.
Okay, right, so that makes sense then.
Yes. Johnny panicked and drove away because it was his first robbery. He didn't know what he was doing.
Wait, so Johnny sees a security guard and panics and drives off, leaving his mate.
Yeah.
Oh, he deserves everything he's getting. What a wuss.
And I guess the alarm was going off too, and I don't know if the security guard had a gun. I mean, that was a long time ago.
Okay, so this is all starting to make a little bit of sense because I always imagined Scott being in the car, but you're right because he abandoned Scott and Scott got caught.
Right.
So he drove off.
And that's why
and
Scott's
then
been
Scott must
angry
have
all
just
this
said,
time.
Scott just must have said, well, fuck it, I may as well just beat the crap out of this guy.
Right.
And that's what happened. But...
Or he was transferring his anger at Johnny driving away onto the security guard.
And we know he has a temper.
We do.
So...
Because remember Scottish Vicky's boyfriend there.
Jordan.
Yeah. When the two of them got beat up by Scott, they were both hospitalized because
he
of
has
it.
a temper.
He has a temper and he can beat the crap out of you and put you in the hospital.
But Grant, the security guard's mum, chose not to mention any of this part.
Until now.
Right. Okay. I'm still a little confused, but I'm less confused than I was now that
That's the bit that doesn't make sense and is frustrating to me is that
okay.
just now we're learning that Scott beat up. And Scott never said anything about beating up the security guard.
No, he was quite happy to let Johnny think that this was all his fault.
Right.
Which starts to make sense a little bit as well.
A little, yeah.
I've caused this for myself just by imagining Scott to be in the passenger seat, which of course he wasn't.
No.
I'm a writer.
Yeah,
that plot just whoosh straight over my head. Meanwhile, Peter, who doesn't work at the factory, turns up at the factory looking for Carla, but Sarah hasn't a Scooby where she is.
Still on the first storyline.
Right. So, I can wait, says Peter. But he expected to find Carla there because she said that she had a really busy day.
Right. But she didn't say she had a really busy day at the factory. She didn't say, I have a really busy day, I'll be at the factory all day long because it'll be a really busy day. There's factory work that happens outside the factory.
Yeah. Grant, the security guard's mum, asks if Johnny was able to live off what he stole that night. Johnny's sorry. He doesn't say that he did. Tell it to the police.
And also, he didn't get any of the money that they stole because Scott never got to the car.
No, he got arrested and presumably the money went back to the warehouse.
Right.
Tell that to the police, says Grant, the security guard's mum. See, asks Jenny, told you this would happen. So she runs after Grant, the security guard's mum. She makes a plea for Johnny, who's a good guy who has spent every single hour of every single day of the last 4 or 5 weeks thinking about Grant, the security guard. Jenny understands the loss and she explains about her drowned son. Grant, the security guard's mum, asked if Tom had died at someone else's hands. How easy would Jenny find it to walk away? As a wife, it's understandable. As a mother, shame. Shame.
Shame. Ding
and Grant,
dong,
the security
ding
guard's
dong,
mum, gets in a
shame,
taxi.
Ding dong, ding dong. Why Jenny doesn't mention the MS is baffling to me. Please have mercy. He has MS. He will die in prison.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, she talks about the MS so often.
Right.
Why not mention it now where it may make a difference?
He has an MS nurse. In the back room, Grant, the security guard's mum, has been replaced by Peter. who is very suspicious when Carla comes home. He thought she was working. She says she had lunch with Maria and goes off for a shower, leaving Peter feeling like a prick.
Right, and goes into great detail about what she and Maria ate.
Mm-hmm. Now Carla is out in the yard where she finds an upset Jenny. Jenny explains about Johnny's confession to Grant the security guard's mum, but doesn't mention about the other bit, the bit where someone beat Grant the security guard up that Johnny somehow didn't know about. And Carla catches up with Johnny later. She tells him Jenny's in bits, but he doesn't want to take Jenny down with him. He doesn't want to ruin her life too. Carla doesn't think he's going to have much say in the matter. And then Johnny looks like he has a plan or needs a toilet.
Or both. Why not both?
Maybe his plan is to go to the toilet. Then on Friday, and remember, on Friday, there's other stuff going on.
Right, yeah.
When this happens, Jenny's telling Johnny...
Ridiculousness happens on Friday.
It is...
When much more important things are going on that...
Remember when the other storyline got an entire episode to live and breathe and to spread out? And
yeah.
I'm wondering why they chose to do that then and not this week.
Right. Yeah.
Because the alternative was putting other storylines up against it that really did not go together well.
No.
As we will discover.
Yes. Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
So Jenny's telling Johnny about a Morrissey-loving parrot she read about, and already, it's a Morrissey-loving parrot. Is this supposed to take our minds off the fact that Oliver is dying? Is it?
Well, it doesn't.
Maybe they could get one. Seriously, when it's not nagging Johnny to go off on vacation, it's about buying avian pets. Johnny gives it the green light anyway because he doesn't give a fuck anymore because he's going to be bound up in jail. That was quite funny. Mm-hmm. Johnny could just do whatever the fuck you like because it doesn't matter.
I won't be here.
Right. Jenny thinks that he should deny his confession. This wasn't his fault and she's not letting him go to prison. Then she gets a call from someone she seems very pleased to hear from. And later, she tells Johnny that it was her ex-stepdaughter, Daisy, that was on the phone. If you have to introduce someone as an ex-stepdaughter, it's not a name that trips over your lips all that often. She and her boyfriend are dropping in for lunch on their way to Edinburgh. She's not seen Daisy for years, but Johnny doesn't think this is a great idea. They've closed the pub to deal with all this shite, and they're expecting a visit from the police. But Jenny wants to see Daisy, so she'll get to see Daisy. And she fucks off to the shops and asks him to tidy up. But instead he goes to see Adam. He desperately needs some legal help. Adam's pretending to be busy.
Yeah. Well, you'll need to make an appointment, Johnny. I'm swamped with work.
Kind of reading this magazine at the moment. He gets back to the pub and Jenny's tidying up.
I think he just doesn't want to help Johnny because Johnny is Carla's dad.
Yeah, maybe. Blissfully ignoring anything negative that Johnny has to say, up to and including the moment he asks for a divorce. She doesn't believe him, and then she gets a text that Daisy is outside waiting, so she goes to get her and tells him to be welcoming. So we meet Daisy and her bloke, and apparently Jenny has planned fish for lunch when neither of them eat it. Not really a safe choice, is it? Throw a lunch and have fish with people that you hardly know. You make a shrimp casserole and a peanut sauce.
It was trout.
No, but I'm exaggerating for hopefully comedic
shrimp
effect.
And peanut are both highly allergenic.
Yeah, that isn't accidental.
That's the joke, is it?
Right.
Okay.
I'm glad we had to dissect that into its component parts just to figure out how it worked. Doesn't matter. Daisy is happy just to see Jenny, and Jenny continues to make a fuss, makes it awkward, made worse by them all standing in separate corners of the pub, and rambles on about where Johnny has got to. Johnny comes out looking like he's just put his dog to sleep, or Grant, the security guard's mum, is pretending to be Daisy. Jenny laughs and introduces Daisy and Lee. Jenny continues to rant uncontrollably, leaving Lee and Daisy to exchange glances. Daisy asks for a tour of the place and Jenny obliges, telling Johnny to cheer the fuck up.
That's right. Cheer the fuck right up.
What Johnny hears, though, is get wired in at that whiskey, so that's what he does. Jenny's still ignoring everything that's happening around her. He insists that he wants a divorce, and she's just helping him realise this by how she's behaving. Meanwhile, Daisy and Lee think it's okay to stand on the other side of the door to the back room and eavesdrop on Johnny telling Jenny...
In fairness, just Daisy thinks it's okay. Lee says to her, yep, let's go back in.
So the eavesdrop
on... Lee is the boring member
right.
of that pair.
His hair was curious. That's the only thing I remember about him. So they eavesdrop on Johnny telling Jenny that she's a controlling mayor, she doesn't know him, and he wants to be in charge of his own life for once. He wants out. It tells her he misses Liz and her fun and easygoing nature. He feels constantly watched with Jenny and pushed in a direction that she wants to go in. He's had enough. Jenny says that her guests will be wondering where they are and goes off to tend to them. So this farcical lunch continues. Jenny opens a bottle of plonk and asks how Daisy and Lee met, while Johnny stands with folded arms and rolls his eyes when he learns that Daisy and Lee hang out at a yacht club. Kind of like what you get at the Cayman Islands. Daisy asks how Johnny and Jenny met. He says that she was a cleaner at his factory. Then he brings up their wedding that nearly didn't happen and how Aidan killed himself. Jenny doesn't think this is the time, but he points out that she doesn't want to talk about anything that matters. The affair with Liz comes out, and then how Jenny tried to run Liz over, and no one draws comparisons between this and Grant the security guard.
No.
Daisy calls Jenny a dark horse. Jenny goes off to get another bottle, and Johnny follows. Lee wants to leave. Daisy says to do so would be rude. Through the back...
Daisy seems to be enjoying this just
way
a little
too
too
much.
much.
Through the back, Jenny's still annoyingly breezing on regardless until Johnny tells her to check their bank account on their phone. Everything from their joint account has been moved to his. He's going to give it to Carla and Kate, and he calls Jenny the original gold digger. She tells him if he wants a divorce, she has a condition. They get back through to the pub and they finish that dinner party. That's her condition.
Right.
So Johnny and Jenny continue to be horrible. Lee continues to want to leave. Daisy continues to enjoy the drama. Jenny says that she and Johnny are an old married couple constantly arguing. Daisy says that she and Lee are the same, but he disagrees, and so they start arguing about whether they argue. Johnny and Jenny almost come to blows over whether his favourite dessert is apple crumble or lemon meringue pie. Mm-hmm. And so it continues. Lee has gone out for a vape and comes back in telling them that they have visitors, and then come the police, and it's not Craig for a change.
Yes,
and Johnny
thank God.
is arrested for robbery and GBH. It was lovely meeting you, Johnny says to Daisy. He tells Jenny he's sorry, and Jenny tells the cops to lock him up and throw away the key. And then Carla finds Jenny through the back later. Under the circumstances, Jenny thinks that Carla should move out. She explains what happened and promises not to cry. Instead, she calls for champagne. Carla points out that Johnny's trying to make her hate him, which should have been fucking obvious to Jenny an hour ago.
But here's the thing. I think it was obvious to her. I think, up until the point where she saw that he had moved the money, I think she was thinking, oh, you're just saying this because of all of this. And then once she saw the money was moved, it added a real factor to it that wasn't there before. Because at first he's just kind of laughing it off, and no, you really don't. And you're just saying this because of this whole prison thing. I don't know. The whole thing, this whole storyline just makes me want to...
Hold on, I've got 2 sentences and then we're done.
All right.
Everything has been signed over to Jenny once the divorce is settled, says Carla. Carla wouldn't blame Jenny if she really did want a divorce, and Jenny points out that this is so Johnny, and she can't do it anymore.
Yeah,
and that's as far as we get with this.
First it's one thing, and then it's another.
All he had to do was just leave them to it. Or go to the police station himself.
Yeah.
If he was that bloody determined.
Right, yeah. It's what he should have done.
So,
And
none of this was really necessary then.
No.
And especially not on Friday.
And it's not really sparing Jenny all that much to divorce her beforehand. I mean, that's... If he really wanted to spare her, then he should have transferred all the money to her account, because if after this, Grant's mom files like a wrongful death suit and comes after the Rovers and the money and everything, and Johnny's money and everything, if it's in Jenny's name, then she couldn't touch it. But right now, with everything in Johnny's name and all the money in Johnny's account, she could touch it. None of this makes any sense.
Timbot 4000 says this does not compute.
Correct. Absolutely correct. And you're right in pointing out, especially day of all days, to have the storyline running parallel to poor Oliver's death.
Because this is supposed to be funny.
Just...
And certain
Is it
parts
supposed
of it.
to be funny?
Through long parts of it, yeah, I think it is. I think it is meant to be funny.
It just made me uncomfortable the whole way through.
Oh, me too. I don't think it was successfully funny.
No,
I think
not
it was
at
meant
all.
to be funny though.
But
Was it meant
not
to be a distraction from the heaviness of the other story to provide a kind of a counterpoint?
This is not successful. They needed something like Tyrone's eyebrows to be a counterpoint.
I don't think you really wanted anything that was supposedly... If you wanted something that was going to be played for laughs, it wasn't something that was going to take 10 minutes or 15 minutes to
Right.
To play out.
And not something that ends in two people breaking up and divorcing.
Maybe instead of having a storyline B, have a couple of storyline C's that were just...
Right. And move this whole... Because they've been talking about, oh, here comes Daisy. They've been talking up this whole Jenny's stepdaughter is going to...
Well, she mentioned Daisy a few weeks ago at the bar to Gemma, was it?
There's been a lot of publicity about this addition to the Cobbles. About Daisy, becoming a thorn in Jenny's side on the Cobbles in publicity for the show.
Oh, good. I'm all for that then.
So they've been really talking it up. A Friday episode where there's this really huge storyline on the other side of it doesn't really feel like... It feels like it's giving the whole, here comes Daisy short shrift.
Mm-hmm.
Should have pushed it to Monday after Oliver's death.
Yeah. And I think this is all just kind of on the back of the fact that the whole Johnny storyline, this is a continuation of the Scott storyline, which was stupid and didn't make an awful lot of sense.
Right.
And so this is the culmination of it, is that Johnny gets arrested and potentially goes to jail for it.
But he doesn't get arrested by anything that Scott says, even though Emma got arrested for something Scott says. It takes Grant, the security guard's mum, going to the police and saying, yeah, this is a guy.
So who was she talking about at the start when...
I think it was Johnny, but the police haven't shown up or anything.
So when she walks into the pub, she knows that he was the driver?
No, I don't think the police have told her the name of the person that was involved. But I think the police have told her that there's been some developments in the case.
When Seb got pushed off a ladder, the cops descended on the street like a SWAT team to figure out what went on there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it happened so long ago. They're happy just to sit by and let days pass without doing anything about it.
No. None of this makes any sense. And the storyline really should have been over when Scott got put away.
Yeah, very much so. Our next storyline today is about Summer and Todd. This was just on Monday. It's morning and Billy is packing his man bag ahead of his very busy day. It seems he's worked over the weekend too, which I guess kind of makes sense. Billy suggests that they all bunk off and do something fun, but Billy hasn't had his morning ablutions yet, and so pisses all over the idea. Instead, they agree to games night later, and it's ladies' choice. So I presume that means Summer. Todd sees Summer at the bus stop. He checks to make sure that they really are okay, and she says that they are. He asks her over to Eileen's for dinner, but Summer has made plans for games night, and Todd tries to invite himself along. And he succeeds.
Yeah, oddly, he succeeds. Mm-hmm. I don't understand, because Summer says, well, I'll have to talk it over with Paul and Billy. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine Paul and Billy saying yes to this.
Right, because she's just back. This is their first kind of all-together night.
Fun night as together. A family. And
now they've been dragged to speed dial to hang out there. And they reminisce about, I'm using anecdotes that Todd and Summer share, and I guess you had to be there, says Todd, when Paul's face starts tripping him. Games night continues, and Todd and Summer are still behaving like a comedy duo, and it still pisses me off how easily Summer has forgiven this prick. Paul has had enough.
Seriously.
And needs to go to work on his helpline. Billy has some paperwork that he needs to finish. Yeah, right. Todd tells Billy to check his email. He's got tickets on an overnight for 3 people to see Sam Fender, whatever that is. When Todd plays Possum a wee bit about not being the one of the 3, It forces everyone to make a big deal of it. Summer says it doesn't make up for him running away, but it's pretty awesome. And they'll leave as Todd does a 2-second smile fade, but not
Even
the
though-
2-second smile fade of the week. Oh no.
Even though nobody can go to a concert right now.
Right. And when they're gone, Todd phones a mysterious person saying that he might have a gig for them. Wonder
Yeah,
what
what
that was
was
all
all
about.
about?
I don't find it. See, we could have found out what that was about on Friday.
Right, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it wouldn't have been hugely interesting, but
no.
it would have been better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's as far as we get. I really am just so disappointed in Summer for giving him.
It does not... It does not make any sense. And again, you know, the publicity with the new Summer coming back and everything was, oh, is she going to forgive Todd? Is this going to be, you know, there's going to be a clash. She's going to be really angry at him. It's going to take forever for her to forgive him. And then it doesn't.
She was a little moody at a bus stop for 2 minutes,
Right.
and that was it. Shame.
Shame. Ding dong, ding dong. Shame.
Still don't
Ding
like
dong,
Todd.
ding dong. No. Todd is the new tit of the street.
Todd. What a tip.
Todd.
Talking of which,
I was going to start calling him Eileen's son
oh why?
because he's a tit. Like Tim's dad.
Yeah, we got some Tim's dad stuff to talk about next. If you're interested in that,
Not really, but do
You're
go
not.
on. Do go on.
because I guess we should really ask: do you have any idea what Todd's planning here? What's this gig all about? Is it somebody to try and
Who knows?
worm their way in between?
Who knows? Who cares? That's the important part of this
I am
conversation.
finding it very hard to care about
Who
this story.
cares? I think we've established a few times that Paul and Billy are strong. That every time Todd tries to throw a monkey wrench in that relationship, it just makes Paul and Billy stronger.
No, I think they're going to succeed at some point, and Paul and Billy will be split up, and Todd will manoeuvre his way back in again. I think that's the long game for it.
You know what I realized this past week about why I like Peter Ash so much, who plays Paul. He kind of looks like a young Harrison Ford. Throw a hat on him and a utility belt with a whip and a brown jacket
And stab
and
your
have him-
eyeballs with pens.
and have him
And-
running away from a giant boulder. Spitting image.
Yeah.
He could play the young Indiana Jones or a Han Solo. That's who they should have gotten for that Solo movie. It would have been so much better.
With a Mancunian accent, yeah. Could have got Billy to be a young Carrie Fisher. So,
Princess
Tim's-
Leia's not in the Solo movie.
Tim's fucking dad. Yeah, because that's the one thing that was wrong with that imagining. Tim's fucking dad. Haven't got a chance to say that in a while.
He is the OG tit.
Yep. On Monday, Tim goes in to visit Yasmin in the jail. She wasn't expecting to see him on the visitor list, and he apologises for everything, for not believing her, for ignoring the signs, her trapped in the box, because that gets a mention again. And now he wonders how well the wool was pulled over his own eyes with Elaine and his mum. He's tormented by it.
Or who he thought was his mum.
Yeah. Yasmin admits that she used to be the same, but in the words of Maya Angelou, if you don't like it, change it. And if you can't change it, change your attitude. She's trying to live more like Maya these days, and it stops Tim's dad from controlling her.
I really liked this. If it weren't for our other obvious things, this probably would have been my moment of the week.
Right.
Is Tim going and apologizing to Yasmin.
After the meeting, Tim goes to see Alya and announces that he wants to testify against Tim's dad. He saw plenty of stuff. The trapped in the box thing that gets another mention. The CCTV thing. Alya checks to make sure that Tim really wants to testify against Tim's dad. He is Tim's dad after all. Tim is trying to live more like Maya, he says.
Yeah.
Later, Tim's dad shouts after Tim in the street. He's heard phase news. Tim doesn't want to talk and tells Tim's dad that once he's officially a witness for the defence, if Tim's dad tries to talk to Tim, he'll get done for witness tampering. Tim's dad is shocked, but Tim will do whatever it takes to help Maya Angelou. Yasmin. Now Alya is visiting Yasmin, confirming that Tim will indeed testify against Tim's dad. Yasmin isn't sure, but Tim knows what he's doing, and he's known that what he's doing is right. Yasmin doesn't look happy though, and she's not sure about the trial, and she's safe in prison with Tim's dad back at home.
You know, the actress who plays Yasmin said...
Shelley King.
Yes, Shelley King said in an interview this week that she wants to play a Bond villain.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. That would be really good.
Yeah.
I'm all for that. Get
I
Barbara
think she would
Broccoli
work-
on the phone.
She'd work well with a cat, I think. What do you think? I think Yasmin probably likes cats.
But like an exotic cat, like a leopard or something.
It can't be a hairless one because that's
No.
too Austin Powers, isn't
That's
it?
way too on the nose.
Alya tells her to keep her chin up, and she has some news about Tim's dad for her. And we don't find out what it is straight away. Back at speed dial, Alya and Ryan are chatting about Tim's dad and how he really doesn't have any reason to hang around if or when Yasmin is found not guilty. Then Tim's dad hurries down the stairs waving a piece of paper. Court of protection, he says. Oh good, says Alya, the post has been. He says this changes nothing, but Alya begs to differ. No more power of attorney, no more controlling Yasmin's affairs. He says he'll fight this tooth and nail. Alya wishes him luck, but it'll be his own money he's spending. And when Tim's dad looks confused, she offers to explain the more complicated sections of the notice. After a lot of nasal breathing, Tim's dad leaves, and Alya looks like she very much enjoyed that, as did I. If it hadn't been for other things in this week's story, I think that would have been my moment of the week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It kind of reminded me of that scene in Emperor's New Groove where Cusco says to Yzma, you know, you've been let go. We're going in a different direction. Blah, 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 blah. The way that Alya's, you know, spelling it out to Tim's dad. Don't look at me like that. You liked Emperor's New Groove when we watched it during lockdown.
I remember nothing of it.
Really? It's so funny. It's like one of the best Disney movies of that particular era. And I'm not saying that just because I've met Patrick Warburton, who played Kronk.
Yeah, it was kind of forgettable.
Oh!
On Wednesday, Debbie is working in the kitchen at Kev's when Kev, not working, like she's not treating it like it's a restaurant.
No.
When Kev comes in and asks how it's going, and she has to act all nonchalant and stuff about what she's doing on her laptop, Kev's worried about having to do something special for date night. Well, Abby insists that they do something a little bit more out of the ordinary, and he calls it American nonsense.
Yes, date night. American nonsense. Of all the nonsense that comes from America,
Date night
is really far up there.
And he's kind of been back to being Kev the crank.
Yeah.
He goes, why do you have to do a bottle of Prosecco and a meal?
Yeah, why can't we just sit in front of the telly?
And eat chips. Mm-hmm. What's wrong with a chippy and a couple of tins? When Kev asks what Debbie's doing, she pretends it's job applications, and then she pretends that it's some accountancy affair or whatever, and he offers to get it checked out with his guy, but she's like, no, it's okay, I've got it.
Nah.
She doesn't know what she'd have done without Kev's support, and then she does a pretty sterling 2-second smile fade. That is our 2-second smile fade of the week.
Yes, because she shows teeth.
Yep. And there's like about 15 different emotions when she's
right
transitioning from smile to not smile.
Right, and she does it with her eyes as well as her mouth. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Later, Debbie goes to see Ray. Number 6 is coming along, but Tim's dad is going to take some shifting. The pre-planning...
See, I thought they already had Tim's dad in the bag. Very confusing.
No, I don't think so. She was just laying the groundwork by getting them to argue with Sally and Tim and create all that stuff with the Mr. Boombastic thing.
Yeah, no, but remember when she buttered him up by telling him that Alya was on his case? Remember? Like back in the beginning before we even knew for sure she was working with Ray Weinstein?
Oh, yeah. The pre-planning is being approved, so they need to get moving before they'll be forced to go public with all this, and Ray thinks that he'll take a crack at Tim's dad himself, but not like that. Tim's dad is leaving a deplorable message for Christine when Ray comes in to speed dial
I needed a shower after that message.
for something a bit spicy. Does he sing a little song? He does sing a little song, doesn't he? Something about magic.
Oh.
It was awful.
Blah.
They chat about how Alya shouldn't be working in hospitality and compare war wounds from being hated around here. Ray gets blamed for bad weather, he says. Tim's dad has been looking at Ray's hotel prices and thinks they're a bit steep. Ray offers him the presidential suite for free if Tim's dad agrees to sell his house to him.
Yeah, because that's a equivalent.
Right. Tim's dad isn't interested. Ray overheard a phone conversation earlier with that Christine. Need a hotel because you can't take your fancy bit back to your own house? That's criminal, says Ray. And so they talk about escaping to the sun. Ray has a place in Kefalonia and Tim's dad has always been about Cyprus. Ray offers him over the asking price, but Tim's dad just sees that as more money into Yasmin's pocket for her legal team. Fair enough. How about I pay you under the odds and then the rest in cash? No questions asked. 30k in your back pocket untaxed. Tim's dad wants 50 because he couldn't launder 50. He couldn't launder 20.
No.
Ray offers 40. So later, Ray has left and Tim's dad, with 2 carrier bags full of food, wants a word with Alya. He's changed his mind about selling the house. Alya wonders what game he's playing, but Tim's dad reckons he has no other option. He mentions Cyprus again. He'll have more fun there on his own than he would with Yasmin, but Alya reckons that he'll end up behind bars. Where is Elaine again? It's such a mystery. Is this another of Tim's dad's magic tricks? Alya wants to get him run over now. He's actually a little bit tied up in another storyline at the moment. But Tim's dad has plans. What with Doris? A magic show, he says. Cheerio, and off he fucks. Later, Ray and Debbie do a post-mortem on the Tim's dad deal. She's very suspicious of Ray getting involved and is angry at the sweetener that Ray threw at him. Ray says it was 40 grand, but he wanted 70. Nobody mentioned 70.
No.
Ray's trying to pull the wool over
Debbie's
eyes, trying to make it look like he got a good deal.
No, obviously.
Debbie thinks it's Shona's hand, and now the street could find out that they're behind it. She wants her fucking money, so he'd better have played this right. At the garage, Abby and Kev are discussing his piss-poor idea of what a date night is, and then they watch Ray and Tim's dad, replete with ubiquitous plastic bags, discuss something serious in the middle of the street. Back in Speed Dial, Ryan has been doing his deliveries. Apparently, his last customer was a ventriloquist who made him speak to his weird little donkey. Did Ryan just get groomed there?
Was he at Richard Herring's house?
He does have a little donkey.
He
the
does.
birthday donkey.
The birthday donkey.
That wants to die.
Yes.
Why can't I die? Alya has been thinking about Tim's dad and his plastic bags. She doesn't believe the magic show excuse. Ryan has found receipts in the van under the seat. They're from a supermarket in Oldham, which has been put into the van's sat-nav a bunch of times. Curiouser and curiouser, says Alya.
Correct.
And she wonders if this has anything to do with Elaine. And I thought this was brilliant, because I've been noticing for weeks, every time you see Tim's dad, he's carrying plastic bags.
Yeah.
And it just, I kind of thought it was part of this kind of sad persona that Tim's dad was, that he's always going away and he's getting his takeaway food.
Right.
Because
he's a lonely old man.
Right. I kind of added to the lonely persona. Mm-hmm. And it had crossed my mind to take screen grabs every time you see Tim's dad with plastic bags.
Right.
And that was before anything happened
And then
this week.
plays the end credit music for
Incredible Hulk. Of course.
Of course.
But now it seems to have been, I think this is kind of deliberate.
Yeah.
That the plastic bags is that he's feeding someone.
Yeah.
Not just himself.
Right.
And if that proves to be true, I love that. I think that's great. That's that little inconsequential, almost unnoticeable, like a kind of invisible part of Tim's dad is the fact that he's carrying plastic bags. But this is really, really important. It's kind of like if he gets done as being a serial, gets done for being a serial killer or whatever, and then all the neighbours are saying, yeah, he was never without a plastic bag. But nobody ever mentioned it.
Right.
Because it's not noteworthy.
No.
Although it did kind of strike me as being, this is something I want to take screen grabs of.
2 plastic bags? Does he really need that much food?
Always wondering about with plastic bags. What's in those plastic bags?
It's little bits of Elaine.
Possibly.
What's in the box? What's in the box?
John Doe has the upper hand. That was my Morgan Freeman, obviously. Yeah. On Friday then, Alya sees Tim's dad in the street. He's upgraded his plastic bag to an overnight version. She winds him up about his supposed gig. He claims it was in Nottingham and he had an overnighter in a hotel. Then he announces that he's going to the doctors later, probably stress, so he won't be in at work.
For his back.
She's suspicious, so she goes to see Sally and Tim, explaining that Tim's dad is up to something and she thinks it's to do with Elaine. He's sneaking around, lying about it, and Ryan found all the GPS stuff and the receipts from Oldham. Plus, he's been really keen to sell the house and move to Cyprus. Tim says they need proof, they need to follow him, and if there's anything that he can do to help his mum, he will. And this is all done against the backdrop of Oliver dying today, and Sally not sure that they should be bothered with this. But I didn't mind this story being part of Friday.
No, because it's, as Tim rightly points out, he needs a distraction.
Right.
From the whole Oliver thing.
Yeah.
As Tim's best friend. Or as Steve's best friend. Who?
Tim probably is Tim's best friend, if you know what I mean. So, they go around to the back to the little conservatory and Tim finds a key under the plant pot, as expected. The suspicion is that Tim's dad isn't at the doctor, he's gone back to Oldham. Tim isn't sure what they're looking for. Anything, says Alya.
Well, that narrows it down.
Thanks for clearing that up, says Tim. And in the subtitles, they put a little exclamation point in parentheses.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
That's
because that means
sarcasm.
it's sarcasm.
Mm-hmm. Alya is in Tim's dad's magic room, which has playing card wallpaper and is definitely not a sex dungeon. Tim finds a taxi receipt in a drawer with an Oldham postcode. Alya checks it on her phone. It's Pickford Street. When Tim's dad returns with the Christine woman. "Who are you?" asks Tim. "Who are you?" asks the Christine woman. And Alya points out it's her grand's house and she doesn't have to leave and she's okay to be there, and accuses Tim's dad of holding Elaine prisoner in Pickford Street in Oldham. But Christine points out that that's where she's just moved to and how Tim's dad is helping her with the rent. Alya points out that it's her grand's money. Tim demands to know what's happened to Elaine, and Tim's dad says he threw her in the canal like an unwanted litter of kittens. Tim's dad tells him to get out, and Tim swears that he's going to find Elaine.
Right. And what I find very frustrating with all of that is that, Alya does most of the talking there. And Tim doesn't get a chance to say, "I'm his son and you shouldn't be around him."
Right.
"I'm his son and I'm telling you this."
Right.
He's abusive. He's abused women in the past.
Mm-hmm.
He lets Alya do all of that when Tim's dad has already poisoned Christine's mind against Alya.
Right.
But not necessarily against Tim.
Right.
So Tim would have been much more persuasive. And they don't allow him to be persuasive.
That's Tim, though. That's up to Tim.
Nah.
And I can see that being from Tim.
Nah.
Half time at the Indoor Stadium at Alya. It's Alya Athletic 0, Heart of Midlothian 0.
Don't do that.
Back to the studio.
Oh dear.
I still have suspicions about Oldham. Wasn't that where Elaine was supposed to live?
Oh, that would make it an interesting choice for Tim's dad to have convinced this Christine woman to move up there.
To make it easier for him to have an excuse to go there. To kind of cover his tracks a little bit. I thought she lived in Oldham. I could be wrong. She lived nearby anyway. She lived kind of in the area.
We still need to find out what happened to Elaine.
Right.
Because let's not forget.
She's not dead.
He's got
It's
her
Paula
cell
Wilcox,
phone.
for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Doesn't have the SIM. The SIM is down the drain on
Right.
Coronation Street.
On Coronation Street.
You'd think that the police would have been able to find that by now.
No, they're too busy not arresting Johnny for a crime that happened 40 years ago.
Right. I kind of imagine them being like the CID in Hot Fuzz. Just hanging around smoking cigarettes and playing darts and stuff. And
Eating donuts.
right.
And doing other,
Vital police work.
policeman stereotypes.
Yeah. As we approach the 60th, as we approach the 60th anniversary, I think we've been led to believe that this storyline, which has been bubbling away and building over
Years.
over a year anyway,
Yeah.
is culminating in something that's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. Because when the 60th isn't next week, it's a week after.
Right. And like all the publicity has said, that this is one of the storylines that will reach its exciting conclusion in the 60th anniversary.
So
This and the whole race stuff. And I thought like the whole Oliver stuff, but the whole Oliver stuff is pretty
don't.
well done.
There we go.
There we-
Yeah. So I guess there are some options that we have open here, because I guess that we're going to have the trial.
Yes.
Where Yasmin is found either guilty or not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine, and I haven't read anything about this, I haven't read any speculation about the 60th.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine she'll be found not guilty thanks to some late emerging evidence.
Right, yeah.
Possibly
it's going to
in
be
the
a
shape
deus
of
ex
Elaine.
machina.
Right. So she's going to get off.
Mm-hmm. He's going to get on.
And he's not going to be happy about this, obviously. Is he going to get... If he gets arrested, I don't think that's satisfying at all.
You don't want him to go to prison.
No, he needs to die.
No, I don't want him to die.
He needs to die.
I want him to suffer in prison for the rest of his life.
But we don't see him suffer in prison for the rest of his life.
I don't want him to die. Dying is too quick and easy.
Well, you can make it long, and
Prison is not easy.
Corey has a habit of killing its villains.
Yeah.
Because if he goes to prison, he has to get out of prison. The idea of Tim's dad being in prison forever, and we never see him again.
Well, we're never going to see him again. This is going to be an exit storyline for this character.
Right. It has to be.
Yeah.
One way or the other. It has
Right.
to be. I just don't see them making it that he goes to jail.
Forever.
Because it's unsatisfying. We need the satisfaction of him going through that baking slicer with a oscillating fan tied around his neck and
You know,
in flames.
he actually had to go to therapy because of the storyline in real life.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Because they have really done it exceptionally well. And
Right.
he is,
Evil.
especially if you're not that person in real life,
Which he's not.
becoming that person for hours
Such a
upon
long time.
hours
Yeah.
of your day and of your week, I can imagine that kind of wearing you down.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing people that you like, in the shape of Shelley King particularly, being petrified of you,
Right.
would have an effect.
And, you know, people hating you on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Never mind Colson Smith's neighbors being annoyed about recycling. Imagine all the people who hate him in real life because of the character that he acts.
Right, they can't separate them.
Right.
And then carrying all those plastic bags about the place from point A to point B over and over
Probably
again.
got some nice guns on him now.
You would have thought so. Carrying all that viscera of trying to dump it in the canal.
Mm.
Yeah, and I saw on Twitter that Ian Bartholomew got a record deal this week.
Oh, good. Grant.
Right. The song that he's releasing for the Women's Aid
Yes.
stuff
Yes,
that was
that I told you about.
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think it's on the back of all that.
Yeah.
It's,
Absolutely.
he's got a deal. He does have, have a remarkably good
He's
voice.
got a very beautiful voice.
And I don't mean this badly, but it's surprising when you hear him sing. Because you don't expect that voice to come out of Tim's dad. Because I can't separate the fictional
Right.
character from the real man, clearly.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay, we've beat
Anyway.
around the bush long enough. Oh, God, this is going to go 2 hours again.
Yeah, it is.
Oliver's disbanded legal army. On Monday, Leanne is singing Who Will Buy to Oliver because it's from Oliver. Apparently, Oliver is a big fan of Lionel Bart. Another thing for the memory box. In comes Steve, who gives Leanne a heads up that he'll be getting some memories from Oliver in a wee bit. And Leanne is dead against it, but Steve says that she doesn't need to be there. That's why he's given her notice, and she reluctantly concedes. And I quite liked the fact that Steve was just, no, this is what's happening.
Yeah. We're
I'm-
going to do this whether you like it or not.
Pretty much.
And I was right. She doesn't like this idea.
Right. Inman still has keys for the law office because he and Toyah are there talking about Ryan's success rate at having a pee.
What?
Sometimes he hits the seat. Sometimes he doesn't even get anywhere near the seat. Apparently.
No, I thought
Ryan has trouble. Did I just invent a scene?
no. Toyah is upset because he flushes every time when he pees. He, instead of when it's yellow, let it mellow. When it's brown, flush it down. I thought that was the whole argument there with Ryan's bathroom habits.
I thought he was he played kind of fast and loose with the aiming. I thought that was mentioned as well. If it wasn't...
Because he's a toddler.
It was in my head. Well, it happens to the best of
Or a
us.
teenager.
In comes Leanne, who wants to change their tactics now that Steve has pulled out. She's been reading up...
But not like that.
She's been reading up and she wants to take the...
If only he had, we wouldn't be in this situation.
And she wants to take the hospital on a negligence charge. Imran and Toyah are kind of, not too sure about this.
Right.
Back at the hospital, Nick arrives just as Steve's about to start harvesting memories. He invites Nick to join in, seeing as he's Oliver's dad too, and the pair of them admit to past faults where they refuse to acknowledge the other's right to be part of Oliver's life.
Yeah.
And they bring up the time that Nick got trapped in quicksand.
Yes. So we got trapped in a box and trapped in quicksand.
We got trapped in the box twice and trapped in quicksand for our Cory Bingo card.
Mm-hmm.
What
and later on, we're going to get trapped in an elevator.
Twice again, I think.
Twice. Yeah.
What they wouldn't give now to be arguing about sleeping arrangements or weeding schedules. And a little later, Steve wants to get a look at Oliver's hair. Well, Amy and Emma want it. He doesn't think he can do it, so Nick steps up saying that he'll take it from the back so no one will notice.
Right, because let's not forget, Nick comes from a long family line of barbers and hairstylists.
Yeah, I think the firstborn becomes a doctor. The secondborn is a lawyer.
Right.
Thirdborn is a teacher. Fourthborn is a hairdresser.
Yes. Fifthborn is a priest.
Thank you, Bob Mortimer, for that list. So Nick goes off to do that while Steve steps out to take a call from his new solicitor. I'm glad that Nick has taken the locks from the back and not from the front, because that would have been
awkward.
Yeah. So a little later still, Nick has taken... He's taken quite a chunk, actually, of Oliver's hair, just as, of course, Leanne comes back.
Right.
And she sees the hair in Nick's hand and shakes her head a bit and walks straight back out again. I thought she was going to lose her fucking mind about that, but she didn't.
Well, she does, but she does it silently.
Right.
She's like, nope, don't even,
Right.
don't even. And then she lets loose once she leaves.
So Steve and Nick walk into an argument with Leanne in the waiting room. She thinks that taking his hair is sick and they're acting like he's already gone. She gives Steve a hard time for being on the phone when the hair was getting taken, but Steve points out that he was talking to his solicitor because she won't drop this stupid fucking appeal. He leaves and Nick says that this memory box is just Steve's way to get some control like she's doing with the appeal, but this does not go down well and she insists that she's the only one fighting. So Nick says, ugh, and leaves her to it. Back at their flat, Irman is filling in Toyah.
But not like that.
Steve's solicitor has filed, which means that Leanne's chances of an appeal are now hopeless. And not only that, he and Ellie are not happy with Leanne's new instructions.
Yeah.
Negligence is about looking back, says Imran. This was supposed to be looking forward.
Right.
This isn't going to go well for Leanne, he says.
Yeah. And again, accusing the NHS of negligence during this time is not a good look.
Yeah, we'll get to this sudden change of wind. Imran and Elliot go to the hospital to see Leanne. Elliot tells her that they shouldn't go ahead with claiming that the hospital was negligent. How come, asks Leanne. Because they weren't, says Imran. Leanne thinks that they're killing Oliver and that is negligence her book, and they have to do what she wants. Imran somewhat belatedly says that they don't want to attack the NHS at this time, and then even more belatedly, Elliot reveals that his sister is an ICU nurse who has seen some horrible things during COVID. The staff treating Oliver have made sacrifices too, and if Leanne insists on proceeding, he and Imran would have to step down. Then Toyah comes in with some empty cups of coffee, as Leanne gets torn into a legal team who have decided to wave the white flag. Imran says it's not personal, but it's personal to Leanne, and she calls them cowards. She storms out, Toyah chasing after her. Leanne has Paula on speed dial on her phone. That's difficult now. On her phone, and leaves a message with her. When Leanne looks like she's going to pass out, Toyah insists that she eats something. Thanks for having me back, says Leanne. Always says Toyah, but her expression kind of gives her away a little bit.
It was nice to have a brief mention of Paula.
I've not seen her for so long.
I don't know if she's ever coming back because she's got that gig at is it Doctors?
Oh.
She's got that gig where she's...
Oh, surely she's coming back.
Somebody's wife.
Oh no, she needs to come back. To sit in the hot tub fully dressed, remember? I missed that.
Good times. Good times.
Oh, such good times. Back home, Leanne has had some soup and is now sleepy. She's sorry Toyah has been caught in the middle of this, and she doesn't hate Imran, but she didn't think he'd cut and run like that. And when Toyah tries to present an alternate view, Leanne says that she'll never forgive Imran for what he's done, which doesn't really sound like she doesn't not hate him. But anyway. Then her phone goes. Toyah asks her to ignore it, but Leanne doesn't. And it's Paula, who doesn't want to touch this case with a shitty stick. Toyah suggests that Leanne has done everything that she can and she should go spend some time with her son. Leanne thinks the world isn't short of solicitors, and when Toyah suggests that she's been irrational, she says that she's not, she's just been a mum. And at the hospital, Steve is looking at Oliver's green handprint. Nick sticks his head in to say cheerio and apologises for Leanne's reaction, which isn't really his place. They wonder what her next move is going to be, and whatever it is, Nick doesn't expect to be part of it. Back home, Leanne has been knocked back by 5 solicitors, and Toyah thinks that enough is enough. She and the doctors and the nurses and Imran and Alya have all done their best, but it's over. Leanne breaks down, saying that she's on her own, and it doesn't feel right not to fight. Toyah says it's not the same as surrendering, and that Imran tore himself in two coming to that decision. Leanne now kind of finds a bit of a second wind, and is now suddenly uber pissed that Toyah wasn't in the dark about all of this after all. She throws Toyah out, calling her a backstabber. The only person that Oliver can rely on is her. And later we see her alone, still looking up solicitors' numbers on Vogel. But the appeal, surely, is doomed.
Yes.
On Wednesday, Leanne is in Oliver's room, seemingly trying to pull on Elle Woods and teach herself law in 24 hours. She's practising a speech. Oh, I'm glad that she didn't give, and is interrupted when Steve comes in, amazed to find that she'll be representing herself. This isn't a parking ticket, says Steve. And Steve is in agreement with Imran and Elliot now. The doctors and nurses have been amazing. She's been doing some reading though, and she thinks that she can get the newspapers involved. Maybe Oliver won't be denied any experimental treatment that comes along, and then she has the Supreme Court and the European Court of Human Rights as well. She seems to think that she has plenty of time on her hands here. Steve is worried about Leanne and what this is doing to her. Then along comes Dr. Howard, who has some concerning news about Oliver's latest blood work. Then Toyah and Simon turn up. Simon is sick of all this fighting and sniping, and Leanne is apologetic for 2 seconds before she starts sniping again. She wants just a little bit of help from Imran with all the legal stuff. Just a bit of coaching. Why won't anybody help her? And she grabs all of her expensive law books and leaves. Then Steve is back from his solicitor. Leanne immediately starts sniping. She claims that she knows what she's doing, and Steve goes off to see if the blood test results have come back though. And Leanne wastes no time in going through his jacket pockets and comes out with some fancy looking legal papers. Steve comes back and isn't impressed that Leanne has stolen his paperwork. She refuses to give them back and tells Steve that he shouldn't be opposing the appeal. She rips the papers up in front of his face, but of course they're just copies of papers that have already been filed, of which I think we already knew from Monday. This appeal is going to go against you, says Steve. Leanne and her bag books turn up at the law office looking for Imran's help. She's representing herself, which she advises against, and the fact that she can't find representation from anyone else should tell her something. She knows she's out of her depth, but she needs someone to go through the legal facts. She needs someone to translate it all for her. She needs a solicitor.
Right, yeah.
That's what she needs. And he asks her to leave, but she refuses.
Is there something like 411 over in the UK?
Information.
Yeah.
There's a legal aid.
Yeah. You'd think she would have called legal aid for legal aid.
I don't know how much they can give if you have the means to pay for it through a normal solicitor.
Well, you could just call in, just asking for advice and where to find a solicitor and all that stuff. Legal aid does more than just help people who don't.
I don't think this is the sort of case that you can just get a little bit of advice on.
Right. But that's, she's like, I just need a little bit of advice.
She sounds like an addict. She just needs a little.
Yeah, she's
needs a little to get her through.
And she's acting like an addict as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With the escalation.
Right. And the desperation and the begging.
And the franticness.
Mm-hmm. So she wants Imran to phone Elliot. She doesn't care how much it costs, but it's not about money. Neither of them are prepared to make baseless accusations on her behalf. So she locks the door and kicks over a little filing cabinet and demands that he calls Elliot. She needs help. Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, seriously.
She rants for a bit about people giving up and not understanding and not helping and not caring. He offers to take her home, but she's not having it. She's not leaving until Elliot gets here. I don't know what she expects Elliot to do.
Give her advice.
But Elliot's made it perfectly clear as well, hasn't he?
Yes, he has.
So now we have a hostage situation. Imran picks up the phone and pretends to phone Elliot, saying Leanne is there and upset and asking him to come round to see them. Mm-hmm. The phone does ring, so Imran is phoning someone.
Yes.
And if it is just someone at random, God knows what they just made of that half of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So some time has passed and Leanne has twigged that Imran didn't phone Elliot after all, and he's not on his way. Imran knew that there'd be no point, but Nick and Toyah are there, and the mystery of who Imran really phoned is finally solved. They bang on the door, telling her to come out. This isn't helping, says Toyah. So what is, asks Leanne. She sits down, which lets Imran unlock the door, and she obviously has a thought of maybe we don't keep the key in the lock the next time. Nick comes in and tells her that Oliver needs his mum by his side. So she gets back to the hospital to find chaos and alarms and loads of doctors and nurses running about, and Dr. Howarth starting to perform CPR while Leanne and Steve watch on helpless. And later, Howarth comes to tell them that Oliver required resuscitation, but he's stable now. She reminds them about the potential for liver failure, which has meant Oliver was bleeding into his breathing tube, which sounds really, really horrible. Steve asks if this is non-reversible and if it'll happen again, and Howarth explains that it will, and they'll continue to try to resuscitate him due to the pending appeal, but there's no guarantee it'll work next time. And this seems to give Leanne food for thought. And that
Finally.
There was a part of me that was thinking that this was a kind of deliberate line of questioning from Steve, because he knew the answer to this. This is going to happen again. So he needed the doctor to say this is going to happen again.
Right.
And he needed the doctor to say, and we will continue to do this really stressful, dramatic, invasive procedure to try and bring him back because
of this appeal.
Because there's still legal proceedings. So basically what Steve's saying is, this is happening and it's your fault.
Yeah.
To Leanne.
Yeah.
This is the only reason this is going to happen again is because of you. To get her to see sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was deliberate or not.
I don't think it was.
Just the way that he questioned the doctor seemed that he was fishing for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's calmed down later, and Steve says that before Leanne got there, all he was thinking was, please don't let him die like this, in a panicked room surrounded by medics and strangers. She still doesn't see this as an inevitability, but he says it is, and they have a chance to choose how it's going to end, surrounded by medics or in their arms telling him that they love him. Leanne takes this as a dig that she doesn't love him, which Steve obviously refutes, but taking us back to court or prolonging the agony isn't love, and it isn't kind. Leanne can't do this though, and in tears she runs out. And Toyah finds her on a bench outside. She talks about a client whose mum had dementia and who was dying, and on her last night he kept wanting her to take one more breath. Leanne admits that she liked it when Steve and Nick didn't take as much to do with Oliver, even though she pretended to be angry about it because it gave her control of what he ate and what he wore, and how she was quite relieved early when the decision looked like it might have been taken out of their hands. She can't tell him to turn off the machines. And Toyah doesn't think anyone will think that she's let Oliver down, and maybe this is the time to take control back one last time. Mm-hmm. So that was quite a remarkable scene.
Yeah, that was a good scene.
Because I think, if you have sat and watched someone die, you're so conscious of their breathing. Right. And you hear it rattle, and you hear it, thinking that that's not a proper breath. You're not getting any oxygen there, and it gets worse, and then you're just waiting for it
to stop.
And eventually it does, but it doesn't properly stop, and then it starts again. And you think, oh, that was it. Well, it wasn't it, but then it really is it.
Right. And at the same time, you just want one more moment with the person.
Right.
So you want it to stop, but you also don't want it to stop. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can see her, from Leanne's point of view, the fact that it's taken out of her hands, as much as she's talking about control. If they couldn't resuscitate him, then nobody's switching off any machine. Mm-hmm. She's not making a decision to switch off any machine. Mm-hmm. It's kind of done. It's like kind of more natural. Mm-hmm. I can kind of sympathise with that a little bit as well, because nobody wants that responsibility.
No.
You have to take it. But you don't want it. Right.
And Leanne at least has Steve there to be a part of that decision. She doesn't have to take it all on her own shoulders.
Right. But she's relinquishing.
She's
so
just refusing to. She's like, I can't do this, but at the same time, I don't want anybody else to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a control issue.
Absolutely. Toyah and Leanne meet up with Steve back in the hospital. Leanne has spoken with Imran. The appeal is off. So on Friday now, Steve and Leanne are at Oliver's bed, and Leanne wants to know what date it is. Again, there's another kind of real life kind of moment where they have no clue what day of the week it is.
Yeah.
They have no clue what the date is. It's the 27th of November. And back home, Toyah drops in to explain to Nick and Simon what happened at the hospital yesterday. The appeal isn't happening, and Oliver's taking a turn and his liver's failing. The life support is going to be turned off today. Simon and Nick agree to go to the hospital, even though Simon doesn't think that he can.
Yeah. Nick very kindly is like, I will go with you and we will do this together, which I thought was... Oh, Nick is just so good this... I'm turning into Ben Price fan page because he's so good this week.
He is.
So good. Every scene. I just... Blah.
Yeah, he's really understanding, and everything that he's saying is right. And he's not being too forceful with it.
No.
He's just saying, that you're going to want to have been there.
Right. You're going to want to have
Say
had a chance
goodbye.
to say goodbye.
And I was a little disappointed that we didn't get a chance to
see
see
that.
Simon do that, because it almost became like, well, did Simon actually go? And I think there's a moment that's coming up when his family are in the room, and I presume that's the Simon and
Right.
the Amy part and the Emma
And Emma,
part.
yeah.
But I kind of wish we'd seen
We'd
that.
been able to see that.
But you're
yeah.
right. Nick
Ugh,
is
just so good.
it's a bit
All
of a
the way
rock all the way through this. To
and
everyone,
To everyone, yes.
including Steve.
Nick is everyone's rock this week, and he does it so well.
Yeah.
And just blah, blah.
At the hospital, Howarth is explaining what's going to happen next when Nick turns up on his own. He begs to be able to stay, and Leanne, who looks like the fight in Venom has left her, agrees. Leanne decides that he needs his special things with him, which Howarth encourages. And then Steve asks, then? And it was just such a heavy then.
Oh.
Right, okay, what happens after that? And Howarth explains that they'll remove the breathing tube, top up the sedation, and then they'll drift off, and he won't be in any pain. And Leanne realises that she'll be watching her son die. Later, Steve has a private word with Nick. He's having second thoughts that he did the right thing and coerced Leanne into this. And again, Nick says nothing could have convinced Leanne other than Leanne, and tells him not to doubt himself. He's doing the right thing. So once
Yes.
again,
Nick is the rock. He is literally the rock.
Leanne has brought in some toys in his nightlight that he can't sleep without, and a toy dog to cuddle. Howarth comes to see them, Leanne, Nick and Steve. Apparently the family are saying their goodbyes. Howarth insists that there's no rush and asks them to tell a nurse to get her when they're ready, and then she leaves them. Then Leanne realises she forgot his dinosaur pyjamas and she needs to go home to get them, and Nick offers to drive her. And Leanne turns them down at first, probably because of the car, but then she accepts it later. And back at the flat, Leanne is frantic because she can't find the pyjamas, and then remembers that she left them in the washing machine and they're soaking wet. Nick, meanwhile, has found some train pyjamas, which apparently Oliver also liked. They have to be the dinosaur ones for Leanne, and so she starts them on getting them dry. At the hospital, Tracy is worried that Leanne is putting off the inevitable. The waiting is the worst, she says. But waiting is all we have left, says Steve. And he goes off to see Oliver. And later, the jammies are still damp in the washing machine or in the dryer, according to Leanne. Nick says that it looked dry to him. He tells her that they need to go and say goodbye. But Leanne, crying as she clutches the jammies, says that she can't. So they sit on the kitchen floor and talk about when Oliver was born, in this very building, as it turned out. In the lift because Craig's pet rat chewed on the lecky cable. Well done, Craig. Nick was outside with the medics without a clue of what was going on. Oh, poor you, says Leanne. Nick says that she was the first person in the world to hold him. And he kind of leaves it to her to kind of finish that thought, and she realises that she has to be the last. So they leave sans dinosaur jammies. And they get back to the hospital, and Tracy wonders what happened to the dinosaur pyjamas. Which is like, for fuck's sake, Tracy. Leanne goes off to change them, and it is lovely, clean train jammies. Meanwhile, Simon's at home, and he and Amy and Emma are chatting about Steve's favourite food, chips. Emma wants to make something special for when he comes home, which is a nice thought, but you don't want something special. You don't really want anything. But it's cauliflower cheese. But Amy asks for lactose-free because of her allergies. Emma's sad that she doesn't know these things about her family, and she proposes a game where they have to guess which of the surprising things about them is false. Back at Leanne's and Nick's flat, Gail wants to clean, and Toyah doesn't think it's a great idea. She wants them to leave it to Nick and Leanne. And Gail cries as she asks Toyah what she's supposed to say to them, and Toyah says that there's nothing that she can say.
Right. And she says, you're a social worker. You're a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
What do I say? And it was nice that twice this week we get mention of Toyah's profession.
Right.
Twice, which
And
was nice.
I think she's been shown. I mean, Jane Danson's getting a lot of plaudits here, but I think everyone that's involved in this, including Georgia, is
Yeah, Georgia is great. She's always
because
great.
she makes the character take a step back and be kind of separates herself from it, which she has to do for her job before she was in sales at the factory.
Right.
And she does that really, really well.
Yes.
And nobody comments on it until Gail kind of brought it up.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, at the hospital, they're beginning to unplug the machines while Steve and Leanne wait outside. Steve talks, trying to justify what's going on, but Leanne tells him to shut up. But she does it kind of more pleasantly than she has in the past.
Yes.
Howarth lets him in, and we see Oliver without his breathing tube. Leanne sobs, terrified at his side, while Steve looks on from the bottom of the bed. And back at number 1, Emma's fucked up her own game by giving 3 truths. Simon gets upset at the idea of playing a game while Oliver's dying. Then in comes Peter, who comforts Simon.
He kind of comforts all 3 of them.
He does.
Because, Emma asks him if he likes cauliflower cheese.
And he does.
And he very sweetly says, yes. Yes, love. Yes, I do. And that was very nice. It was a nice moment where you forget that we hate Peter.
Right. In Oliver's room, it's all over. Steve and Leanne promise that they'll love him while Nick and Tracy wait outside. And Leanne and Steve start singing You Are My Sunshine. And again, Leanne can't get beyond the Take My Sunshine Away line. And she cries with her head on Oliver's chest. And back on the street, Leanne suggests that no one knows what's happened. She can see lights on and people are having their dinner and
Right.
life's just
TV's on.
going on. Some people know, says Nick. And it's getting cold. And Tim is watching from inside his house thinking that they look like ghosts. And Amy, Emma, Simon, Peter and Gail all come out to see them. And Steve and Tracy go inside and says that we'll see you tomorrow. At Toyah's, she's explaining the circumstances of Oliver's birth to Imran, who surely must have heard the story before.
Right. Well, sometimes it's comforting to recall these stories, and to retell them. So we get to hear the elevator story twice from 2 different perspectives.
And Toyah's fling with Peter. And Toyah explains that she delivered Oliver and Eva's baby. Always the midwife, never the mother. Maybe one day, says Imran. Yeah, we'll see about that, says Toyah. In the flat, Nick is going through the food that's been left. There's a meat-free lasagna from Toyah, shepherd's pie from Gail, and cottage pie from Eileen. I kind of like the fact that Gail and Eileen, who are constantly kind of fighting each other and trying to one-up each other, one's brought a shepherd's pie and one's brought a cottage pie. I just kind of like that detail. He asks what she'd prefer, but of course Leanne can't think about food. She goes into the dryer and finds the jammies again, and she goes to take them into Oliver's room.
She's like, I need to put these away.
Yep. She hesitates before she goes in, and as soon as she goes in, Nick does that thing I think we've all done at some point when he's standing at the counter, when he realises that he hasn't been breathing. He has to gasp for breath.
Yeah, his mouth is open and everything, and he's been the rock for everybody throughout this, and he's finally gotten this moment alone where he himself can grieve.
Yep, he doesn't have to be a rock
He's
for
given
anyone
permission.
anymore.
He's finally giving himself permission to grieve, and oh my God.
I think we've all done that. I know I have. You're just so overwhelmed by what's going on that you don't realise that you're not breathing anymore. It kind of frightens you, and then you realise why. Oofed.
Yeah.
Then in the room, Leanne puts the jammies on the bed, lies down, and falls apart.
Is this the first time we've seen the inside of Oliver's room?
I don't remember it.
Because I couldn't tell if those were bears or the Moomins on his wallpaper.
Everything was dinosaur related, wasn't it?
Not the wallpaper. It looked like the Moomins, but I think they were actually bears.
I like the Moomins.
Me too.
And that's how we end this week's episodes.
Oh. I am crying right now.
Yes,
I am crying.
I kind of felt a little bit. Maybe it's that onion that I chopped up for breakfast this morning was starting to take effect on mine. So I was going
Don't
through some
lie,
of that.
we ate pie for breakfast.
I didn't. Yeah.
Oh.
I think I've had complaints about the story. And there have been kind of dissenting voices. My feel is this is kind of dragged on a little too long, and there have been comments that, well, other stories have dragged on for longer, Tim's dad. But this is a story involving the death of a child, and I think that the shorter that you probably can get away with doing that, the better. And I don't think it's been helped by COVID.
No.
So while I feel like it has been a long haul to get here, and we've had complaints about, we never really knew Oliver to feel kind of sympathy. So it was never his story. It was all about Leanne and Steve.
And Nick.
And Nick, yeah.
And I guess to a degree, Tracy.
Yeah, very much in the periphery, right?
Yes.
But all that said, in the last couple of weeks, I think they've done it exceptionally well, and I think the way that this week in particular landed, I was just so relieved to get away from angry Leanne, because it was making it really hard to care.
Yes.
Because she was just so overwhelmingly angry.
Right.
But getting rid of that midway through the week, I think really, really helped. That she had to come to terms with it. She couldn't be angry as she watched them die.
Right.
And I was looking for a while like that was how it was. That's how it was going to go. And I was like, please don't do that, because that's going to really.
Yeah. It's going to affect her for the rest of her life.
Yeah, and it's really going to steal the emotion out of the scene for us anyway. There was obviously different opinions that are available, but the way that they handled the end of it, they hit so many of the buttons of what it's like to go through losing someone, not even particularly a child, but losing someone in the hospital where you see them without all the machines, is a really stark image that when you see them with the machines, it's frightening.
You've kind of gotten used to the machines,
but you have got used to it. So when you see them without it's like, oh, you're so small,
right?
Because everything that's around makes you look like you're taking up the entire room,
right?
And then it's just a bed, and it's just a body in the bed,
right?
And no matter what size you are, it just feels so small and fragile. So that part I thought was bang on. Nick's gasp was just unbelievable. Unbelievable that it's the minute detail of bereavement that they've picked up
all
on.
these little details, from the three siblings together in a room trying to distract themselves, and then feeling guilty for trying to distract themselves from the inevitable, to Gail and Toyah's conversation, to even Tim looking out the window and saying they look like ghosts.
Right.
You get all these different perspectives, and you realize how, even though we didn't get to see this little boy very much when he was alive, how much his death affects so many different people in so many different ways.
Right.
And the show really captures that. The show really captures that, how something like this will affect the whole family and the whole neighborhood,
right,
where something like this happens. And I think they did that really well. Once they got away from court proceedings, once they got away from all of that, once they finally got back to the human aspect of this, the humanity of it, and the fact that we're talking about the death of a child, the show finally clicked back for me. And I, like you said, we had a hard time in the beginning caring because we didn't know this child at all. But we end up caring so much because we do care about Leanne. We care about Nick. We care about Steve. We care about Amy and Simon and Emma. And I was just so glad that, because this was one of my complaints in the beginning, is that here are these children who are going to be losing their sibling, and we're not, and the whole Leanne of it all just kind of sucked the air out of everybody else's
The
point
legal
of view of the
aspect
story.
was killing the story.
It really was. So once we finally got rid of that, and we could have this family story again, it just made everything so much better.
That's it. Yeah, you go back to the kind of the nuclear family aspect of it, which is extended.
Yeah.
It touches so many parts and so many different houses in the street. That's where the real story is.
Yeah.
Because when we got to the point where it looked like the legal battle was over, but then we start with appeal proceedings.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Just stop.
Remember what this story is about.
Right. Yeah.
And the family and the community aspect of it. And the fact that so many people now on Monday are suddenly bereaved.
Right.
And it's suddenly because it's always sudden, but this has been coming for months.
Yeah, for a
But
while.
they're suddenly bereaved, and it's affected so many of them that they're,
And see, that was one of the things that I really liked in the very beginning of the storyline. Because remember in the very beginning of the storyline when everybody on the street was finding out how very sick Oliver was, and people were talking about it who aren't related to him, and, like Jenny, and you're like, oh, that's right. This does affect Jenny because she did lose a child.
right.
As well. That was really great, and then they veered away from that, and now they've come back to it, and this is where it's just, this is Corey doing its best Corey.
Yep, being its very best Corey.
Being its very best Corey when you're talking about character-driven story that doesn't need all the bells and whistles, doesn't need a separate set built for itself. It just needs the street and its people, and it's wonderful. Even when it's horrible.
Right.
It's weird to talk about a storyline like this as being wonderful, but this week it went back to being very wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh,
Your moment of the week. Well,
it's gotta be that end scene with Nick in one room gasping for air and Leanne collapsed on that bed.
Yeah, I'm gonna have my work cut out trying to put these two images together. I think I'll be fine.
I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think a notable mention also to
Pajamas.
Toyah and I love the portrayal of Toyah being the kind of counsellor and the telling Leanne that she has to. It's time for you to take control.
Right.
That was a kind of goosebump moment as well.
And surrender can still be, this isn't giving in to the inevitable. It's not surrender.
Right.
It's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And I also really loved the pajama scene because, she's so frantic about those dinosaur pajamas and at first Nick is like, well, they're still wet. These ones are good enough. And she's like, no, it has to be these ones. And he gives in and he's like shaking his head. It's like, okay.
Right. Does
Okay.
it, do you really, does it
We'll
really
wait.
need to be these pajamas?
We'll wait.
Yep.
It will keep.
Right.
We'll wait. And he's just so good.
So it's then seen the Nick and Leanne grieving privately is our
Moment of the week.
Our moment of the week.
boring moment of the week, Johnny.
Well, none of that was really
It wasn't boring.
necessarily.
I kind of hate it that it took up a chunk of Friday. That
It took yeah.
It wasn't welcome.
No, it overstayed its welcome. What part of that?
I don't think there was a huge amount of contenders for this week. So basically, the first thing that you think up here is probably going to be it. Was it in the summer storyline?
I mean, game night was kind of boring.
Well, nothing really happened.
They didn't really play a game, did they? They just talked about games and ate speed doll.
Oh, game night.
Yeah, game night is our
Boring moment of the week.
boring moment of the week.
Shall we wrap this one up then?
Yes, please.
If you've ever walked into a room and found Grant, the security guard's mum, standing there with no explanation whatsoever.
With Alya.
Please drop us a line. We're the talkofthestreet@gmail.com, which is also our address on Skype for voicemail, and PayPal if you want to chuck a couple of bucks into our virtual tip jar.
Please.
We're at Corey Podcast on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Please check out our merch store and YouTube channel, links to which you can find on our Twitter bio or on the other stuff page of talkofthestreet.podbean.com. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or on your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode. We will be back next week with more Talk of the Street.
Bye-bye.
Cheerio.